Gnocchi, a pasta that, while typically from northern Italy, is found all over the country. Being a region-based dish, you can expect your gnocchi to consist of a variety of different ingredients. In the late 16th or early 17th century, Spaniards brought potatoes into Italy, spawning what is my favorite version of gnocchi, potato gnocchi. And I guess that answers the question of what's for dinner. So we're going to start off with some potatoes, and these potatoes are leftover baked potatoes from the night before. We're going to peel them, get as much as we can, and then we're going to grate them. You could instead do this, of course, with a potato ricer, but I don't own one, so, we're going to grate it. I am leaving the back part of the skin as a sort of way to protect my hand from also being grated, because human flesh doesn't make good gnocchi. Anyway, so we're going to grade these out. We did weigh them beforehand. What mine weigh doesn't matter. As long as you have a 2-to-1 ratio of potato to flour, that's what you're generally looking for. You are going to mix and combine those, and you're going to add 1 egg first. Mixing that up, a little bit of salt too, don't forget. And you're going to mix all that up. It's not going to be enough. You're going to add another egg again. But you just want to do it one at a time to make sure you're not adding too much, especially if you're like me and don't have any more potatoes. So you're going to keep moving this around, scraping the sides, breaking it down, until it starts to form a cohesive dough, at which point you're going to flour your whatever workstation you're at, and you're going to pull it out the dough. I know I've said in both my previous videos that I am not a fan of dealing with dough, but this dough is a little different. It's not quite as sticky. So you are going to cut off pieces. You're going to make it like a Play-Doh snake, real thin, and you're going to cut them into little pillows. They're kind of cute, honestly. The fun thing about gnocchi is that you can make it into any shape, size, or texture. It's entirely up to you. Reason for this being is when you go to cook it, we're going to boil it, and there's no time for it to boil. It boils until it's done, and it'll float when it's done, so it's kind of fail-proof. Different textures will definitely work better for different sauces. Traditionally, you'll have like this little wooden gnocchi roller that you'll roll it across. Kind of cute. I don't own one. If you wanted to get that texture, you could also use like a back of a fork, some toothpicks, or really anything you want to do. Like I said, we're doing gnocchi 3 ways. The first way is the carbonara, so we're going to start with 2 eggs, one just the yolk, one the whole thing, that are preferably room temperature, and we're going to mix them together until there's no streaks. Then we are going to grate a lot of Parmesan cheese, however much you want. You can't have, well, you probably could have too much. Do about 2 to 4 ounces, somewhere in there. And we're going to mix that together to make this little paste, and we're going to put that to the side. Don't touch it. While our water is boiling for our gnocchi, we are going to put some oil into a nonstick pan, and then we're going to drop in some bacon. We're not going to completely cook this bacon, as we're going to toss a little bit later. We do want to render out some of the fat, because we want some of the fat for some of the other things we're going to cook in this gnocchi. So let this, do its thing for a second. And once it's done, we're going to pull it out, of course. Drain it as we pull out. Got a nice little slotted spooner for that. And then we're going to save the bacon fat for later. We're going to follow that in the bacon fat with some cherry tomatoes. We want to blister these. They look like you burned your finger, which I did the other day. Not the point. That's a different story. You're going to toss them around with a little bit of salt as well. Moving them around every so often just to make sure they're all blistered. When you start seeing them pop, that's when you're done with them. After waiting far too long, my water's up boiling. It's been dumping all the pasta. I would recommend doing it in batches. I didn't do that because I'm a big dum-dum. Because when you drop all that in, it lowers the temperature. So it's going to take a little bit longer to cook. That being said, it is going to take about 2 minutes if the water had remained boiling for them to start floating. They're done when they're floating. You'll see pretty quickly, as you can kind of see some already starting to float right there. Look at that. So we returned the bacon to the pan, let it finish crisping, and we are going to add our gnocchi as it finishes to the pan. We want to toss this with it all. We want the gnocchi to kind of get a little bit of a crust, a little bit of a crunch, add some texture. So yeah, we're just going to toss it around for a little bit. When you start seeing one half of the gnocchi start to brown a little bit, that's when you know you're about done. At that point, we're going to add in our tomatoes, a little bit of pasta water, and our egg Parmesan mixture. We're going to stir for a second. It's not going to be on the heat very long. You do not want your eggs to start to actually cook. Starts with scrambled eggs, you went too far. Something like that. We'll plate a little bit of Parmesan cheese. Or a lot of Parmesan cheese. Don't judge me. Also some freshly cracked black pepper. Yeah, I had to move to do that, don't ask me why. And we're done. So the next thing we're gonna make is a mushroom ragu. I'm gonna start with this. Just use a regular onion. I got these onions at a farmer's market. I asked for green onions, but they gave me. They're really good, but just use regular onion. Just so you know. Give those a nice dice. You want, small little pieces, like so. I really don't know what these onions are. I think it's like bouillon onions. I never heard of them. They're pretty good. They're basically like an onion and a green onion all in one. As you said, we're gonna use that as the onion, and then we're gonna use some of the leafiness, the greens, as a green onion, and it works out pretty well. I'm not gonna lie. Then we're gonna take some cherry tomatoes, and we are going to split them in half, like so. Real easy. It's a little tedious, but it's easy. Put those to the side, and we're gonna break out our mushrooms. So these are some shiitake mushrooms. They're already diced. I'm pulling some out. I am gonna give them a rinse, but they're already diced. And these are some oyster mushrooms that I also got at the farmer's market. We're gonna cut just the caps off. We don't really want the white stalk parts. They're gonna absorb too much moisture, and we don't really want that. They're also kind of spongy and weird. And this is me explaining to my roommate why we don't want them. Basically, I just told you they're gonna absorb a bunch of moisture, and we don't really want them. Also, when you cook, they're gonna get tough. Anyway, so we want all the caps. I can't really give you a measurement because I didn't measure. Just do it by looks. Something's wrong with the cutting board. I don't know what it is. Nothing there. That was weird. I don't know. Anyway, we're gonna take the caps and we're gonna give them just a rough chop. We want them to be chunky. We're gonna move it into a hot pan with some oil and butter. And we are going to saute our onions and our mushrooms until they reduce in size, until they turn a darker color, and until they smell good. It's pretty simple. Once our onion and mushroom mix have done that, we're gonna add some tomato paste. I didn't measure it, just some tomato paste. We're gonna drop some gnocchi in our boiling water, like so. After the tomato paste, we're gonna add some Cabernet Sauvignon. I really like this one I have. It's very fruity, but whatever you have, as long as it's dry and not super sweet. And we're going to continue to cook this, making sure all that alcohol boils out and all those flavors kind of play together. Oops, I dropped a gnocchi. Rescue mission, I guess. Once our gnocchi starts to finish, I give it a little stir, just make sure they're not sitting on the bottom. I don't want them to burn. But once our gnocchi starts to pop up, as you can kind of see, we are going to add some crushed tomatoes to our pan, and then start grabbing our gnocchi. You can see it all kind of at once. We're going to add our gnocchi to our pan, making sure there's a bit of stainless steel. We want them to sit on there. We want them to get crushed, just like in the carbonara. Just we're going to toss them around a little bit, make sure all the things are going to know each other. Add in our sliced tomatoes, and then a little bit of that was basil. Not really a measurement for that, just some basil, some salt, a little bit more oil. And then we're going to start adding in some mozzarella cheese. I have these little pucks of it, which you're going to see here in a second. They're going to go in there together. And, yeah, there they are. And all of these wonderful things are going to have a party in the oven at about 400 degrees. We're making a pesto, so this is a dried basil. I don't have fresh basil, but my supermarket didn't have any. I was really upset about it. That's about a quarter cup of freeze-dried bagels. Basil, jeez, come on, man. Anyway, and then some parsley and some thyme. The parsley, you can get the stems, leave the stems in, it's okay. The thyme, you do not. Thyme stems are actual things, where parsley stems will just get blended up. So, to this pesto, we're also going to add some bacon fat that you can see there, some pine nuts, and some lemons. This is me just picking all the time. You want to make sure you get all the leaves off the time. There's the pine nuts. I don't measure this. We have some lemon zest as well. Let's go in. And then we're going to take that same lemon and we're going to roll it. And it just happens to fall into two. And we're going to squeeze that juice into the process. We're going to blend this. Oh, I forgot garlic. Don't ever forget garlic. Don't ever. And we're going to blend this. Let's get all, gooey. We're going to add the brown grit, so we add oil. Oh, we turn the sides. It's probably important too. You don't want to run upside down. And I forgot salt. Anyway, as this runs, we are going to drizzle oil inside. We are creating